following an important story this morning involving that ongoing years-long dispute, nasty dispute between Qualcomm, of course, and Apple. Qualcomm providing certain patents and intellectual property into, well, all phones, frankly, but iPhones as well, not being paid by Apple suppliers for that. That's been going on for some time. They're meeting in courts around the world. In San Diego, trial expected to start in the earlier part of next year involving this. But this morning, important news out of China that investors are trying to grapple with, as we are, frankly, given what, again, is sort of two different stories from the companies involved. Let me give you the story itself as we understand it. A Chinese court in Fujian province has granted an injunction against Apple. And Qualcomm, by the way, has brought 22 separate cases in 6 provinces in China over this basic dispute they're having with Apple. But in this case, one of them has granted Qualcomm an injunction. It's banning the sale of basically what are all iPhones, other than the very latest, the newest model, so right up to the 10. Apple, however, says that's not the way we read it. The way we read it is all iPhone models that include iOS 11 are banned from sale, but not the ones we're shipping now, which are iOS 12. And therefore, they're saying all iPhone models remain available. And investors are trying to understand what exactly that means and what conceivably will happen from here. I don't have the language in anything that indicates specifically that it is iOS 11 related. Qualcomm, for its part, would say, and by the way, our reports are that Apple continues to sell phones in China right at this moment, whether out of stores or over the internet or any different of the distribution channels. But Qualcomm would say, listen, the court, in their opinion, was not focused on which operating system it was, but actually the functions of the patents that were being infringed. And if you have a phone that is doing those same functions now, whether it's running iOS 11 or 12, or being sold with those operating systems, that is infringement. That should be enjoined. And for what it's worth, as I'm sure many of our viewers know, Apple sold about $11.4 billion worth of goods in China last quarter. Most of that, of course, iPhones. So it is a very important component of their overall revenues. You have to view this in the overall totality of this ongoing and very, very vicious dispute between these two companies. And as always, Sarah, it's very hard to sort of try and parse exactly what it is. Now, you can make an argument that if investors really believed Apple was unable to sell any phones in China, the stock would be down a lot more than 1.4%. That said, if Qualcomm is correct, there are actions they can take to actually get the injunction enforced. And perhaps they'll do that. My understanding is they would need to go in front of an enforcement tribunal and say, hey, they're not obeying the injunction.
This is clearly a huge deal for a number of reasons. I was trying to look up whether have any of these court actions, I mean, the legal battle between Apple and Qualcomm has been going on forever.
For a long time.
It's nasty,
yes.
You mentioned. Have they ever moved to actually block sales of iPhones?
No, I believe this is the first injunction that I'm aware of, and I think Jim was saying earlier there's only been one other injunction of this type issued in China previously at all in terms of products. Same judge, apparently, in Fujian province. So it is a rare thing for this to occur. And there is a belief, of course, this will add to the leverage that Qualcomm potentially has to get Apple to the negotiating table in a real and meaningful way. By the way, even there are disputes between the two companies. Steve Mollenkopf telling Jim Cramer a couple of weeks ago there are settlement talks, referencing them. Apple in court itself in San Diego in a hearing that took place recently saying, no, there aren't really any settlement talks. We're going to trial. So even there, the two sides don't agree, seem to be able to agree on whether they're even talking or not.
And you sort of have to wonder, Carl, I heard you bring it up last hour, how this fits into the overall trade rift between the U.S. and China with the arrest of the Huawei founder's daughter, CFO. Apparently, according to the Journal, this court decision was made before that.
Yes, apparently it was made as early as the end of November 30th, but then a lot of different things need to happen in China before it becomes official, although it does appear Qualcomm and Apple both knew about it last week, middle of last week.